let me show you.
No, tomorrow. Hey, you get back to your quarters now.
Yes, sir.
Where's your cap?
You're standing on it, sir.
Oh.
Behind the goofy grin and Shazam catchphrase lurked secrets that would shock Mayberry. Real Marines who marched with Gomer died in Vietnam. CBS refused to fire a co-star out of loyalty. DVD releases censored singing scenes, and Stanley Kubrick turned the character's name into a deadly insult. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. Fact 1. The character's name was Frankenstein's monster.
Melons grow real good there, though. Sauce kind of sandy. It's not too salty. I tasted it.
The name Gomer Pyle didn't come from a single person, but was assembled like Frankenstein's monster from two completely different sources. Andy Griffith Show creator Aaron Rubin and writer Everett Greenbaum pieced together the character's identity by borrowing from people they knew in the entertainment industry. The first name, Gomer, came from a comedy writer named Gomer Cool, who worked in television during the early 1960s, while the last name Pyle was lifted directly from Denver Pyle, a character actor who played Briscoe Darling on The Andy Griffith Show. Denver Pyle had no connection to the Gomer character beyond lending his surname, and Gomer Cool had nothing to do with the character's personality or mannerisms. The writers simply liked how the two names sounded together, creating a folksy, down-home feeling that perfectly captured the essence of a simple-minded country boy from Mayberry. What makes this naming choice even stranger is that Gomer was originally supposed to be a one-time character who appeared in a single episode of The Andy Griffith Show called Man in a Hurry, which aired in January of 1963. Jim Nabors was hired for just that one appearance as a dim-witted gas station attendant, but audiences loved the character so much that he became a recurring presence throughout the show's fourth season. When CBS decided to give Gomer his own spin-off series set in the Marine Corps, the Frankenstein name stuck, and neither Gomer Cool nor Denver Pyle received any compensation or credit for their inadvertent contributions to one of television's most memorable character names. Fact 2. Opening credits featured doomed Marines.
Better not let her hear you call her that. She'll kill you.
And she can do it too, Benson. I think she could take it.
Not if I train for a couple of months.
Jim Nabors carried a heartbreaking secret about the opening credits of Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. that haunted him for decades after the show ended. The title sequence featured footage of real United States Marines marching in formation alongside neighbors at Camp Pendleton in California, where much of the series was filmed during its 5-season run from 1964 to 1969. These weren't actors playing Marines, but actual active-duty servicemen who participated in the filming as part of the military's cooperation with the production. In interviews conducted years later, Nabors admitted that he found it difficult to watch the show's opening sequence because he knew that many of those young Marines who appeared in the footage were later deployed to Vietnam and never came home. The Vietnam War escalated dramatically during the exact years Gomer Pyle was on the air, with American troop levels reaching over 500,000 by 1968. Camp Pendleton served as a major training and deployment center for Marines heading to Southeast Asia, which meant that the smiling faces marching beside Gomer in the credits likely included men who would face combat within months of filming. Nabors never specified exactly how many of those Marines died or how he learned of their fates, but the knowledge clearly affected him deeply. The cheerful, innocent comedy of the show stood in stark contrast to the brutal reality that many of its extras were living through, creating a disturbing disconnect between the entertainment value of Gomer Pyle and the actual experiences of the military branch it portrayed. Fact 3. Loyalty killed Jim Nabors' variety show.
Come 12 o'clock and smacko. Everybody's kissing everybody else. And the next day everybody wakes up with a cold to start out the new year.
Jim Nabors destroyed his own variety show rather than betray the man who helped make him famous. After Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C. ended in 1969, CBS gave Nabors his own program called the Jim Nabors Hour, which premiered in September of that year and featured musical performances, comedy sketches, and guest stars. Neighbors insisted on bringing his former co-star Frank Sutton along as a regular cast member, keeping their beloved Gomer and Sergeant Carter dynamic alive in comedy segments scattered throughout each episode. The variety show format was popular during that era, with programs like The Carol Burnett Show and The Dean Martin Show drawing massive audiences. But the Jim Neighbors Hour struggled to find its footing. CBS executives believed that Frank Sutton's loud, aggressive comedy style was hurting the show's ratings and demanded that Neighbors remove him from the cast after the first season. The network wanted Neighbors to focus on his singing and create a softer, more variety-oriented program without the jarring presence of Sergeant Carter's yelling. Neighbors flatly refused, telling CBS that Frank Sutton had been instrumental in his success and that he wouldn't abandon his friend just to save a television show. The network responded by canceling the Jim Neighbors Hour after just 2 seasons and 59 episodes, ending in 1971. Neighbors never expressed regret about his decision, stating in multiple interviews that friendship mattered more than career advancement and that he couldn't imagine achieving success by stepping on the people who helped him get there. Fact 4. DVD releases butchered singing scenes.
Was there an accident?
He's hurt inside because tonight a Marine Corps tradition was broken and his company wasn't represented when the first Liberty Kisses were passed out.
When CBS finally released Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C. on DVD in the 2000s, fans who purchased the complete series discovered that significant portions of their favorite episodes had vanished. The studio had edited out numerous musical performances by Jim Neighbors due to music licensing issues, removing entire endings of episodes and gutting some of the show's most memorable moments. Music rights have become increasingly expensive since the 1960s, and when studios prepare old television shows for DVD or streaming release, they often face the choice of either paying substantial fees to license the original songs or simply cutting those segments entirely. CBS chose the cheaper option, leaving fans with incomplete versions of episodes they remembered from childhood. Some episodes lost just a minute or two of Neighbors singing at the end, while others had entire musical numbers removed from the middle of the story, creating awkward jumps in continuity. The problem was especially damaging because Neighbors' singing voice was one of the show's signature elements, with his powerful operatic baritone providing a stunning contrast to Gomer's high-pitched speaking voice. Episodes built around musical performances suffered the most, with some losing their entire emotional payoff when the climactic song was stripped away. Fans complained loudly on internet forums and in DVD reviews, but CBS never restored the missing material or attempted to secure the proper music licenses. The situation highlighted a growing problem in television preservation, where classic shows exist in incomplete forms because studios prioritize profit margins over historical accuracy and viewer satisfaction. Fact 5. The singing voice shocked America.
Why, if he talked soft, your mind would go to wandering and you'd probably stand there and stare at his nose. Oh, he's got to holler.
Jim Neighbors pulled off one of television history's greatest reveals in an episode titled The Songfesters that aired during Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C.'s first season in 1964. Up until that point, audiences only knew Neighbors for his high-pitched, nasal Gomer voice that sounded childlike and simple-minded. The episode's plot centered around Sergeant Carter forcing Gomer to audition for the bass choir against his will, with Carter assuming that Gomer would embarrass himself and provide an opportunity for mockery. When Gomer finally opened his mouth to sing, a rich operatic baritone poured out that seemed physically impossible, coming from the same person who squeaked his way through every line of dialogue. The studio audience's reaction was genuine shock, and viewers at home experienced the same disbelief as they heard this classically trained voice emerging from the bumbling country boy they'd been watching for months. Neighbors had deliberately hidden his real singing voice from the public to make the reveal more dramatic, turning down opportunities to showcase his vocal talents on variety shows and talk shows before the songfesters aired. The contrast between speaking and singing voices was so extreme that some viewers initially thought the show had used a dubbed voice or trick editing. But Neighbors proved his abilities were real by performing live on variety shows throughout the rest of his career. The episode became one of the series' most famous moments and opened up an entire new entertainment avenue for Neighbors, who went on to record over 24 albums and became a regular performer at concert halls across America, ultimately singing at the Indianapolis 500 race for 42 consecutive years. Fact 6. Frank Sutton never served as a Marine.
Where you going? To see the battalion commander and get him thrown out of here. Him and his Athenia. I know!
The actor who played the toughest Marine Corps drill instructor on television never actually made it into the Marines himself. Frank Sutton tried to enlist in the United States Marine Corps during the World War II, but failed the physical examination because he was colorblind, a condition that disqualified candidates from Marine service at that time. Instead of giving up on military service entirely, Sutton joined the United States Army and ended up seeing far more combat than most Marines ever experienced. He participated in 14 assault landings across the Pacific Theater, fighting in some of the war's bloodiest island campaigns between 1943 and 1945. Sutton earned significant combat experience that would later inform his portrayal of Sergeant Carter, even though that experience came from the Army rather than the Marine Corps. The irony wasn't lost on real Marines who worked as technical advisors on Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C., but they respected Sutton's genuine combat record and never questioned his right to play a Marine on television. Sutton's Army service included time in the Pacific, where he witnessed the brutality of jungle warfare and amphibious assaults, experiences that gave him deep understanding of military culture and the relationship between enlisted men and their sergeants. His performance as Sergeant Carter drew from that real military background, even though he wore the wrong uniform, and many actual Marine drill instructors praised Sutton's portrayal as surprisingly accurate despite his Army origins. The color blindness that kept him out of the Marines turned out to be irrelevant to his acting career, where he spent 5 years barking orders and perfecting the image of a Marine sergeant. Fact 7. Stanley Kubrick weaponized the name director.
How come you can eat and eat and eat, this don't hardly ever show? And I can eat just a little bit and it's just... Do it!
Stanley Kubrick transformed Gomer Pyle from a lovable buffoon into a symbol of military tragedy when he made Full Metal Jacket in 1987. The film featured an overweight, clumsy Marine recruit played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who gets nicknamed Gomer Pyle by his brutal drill instructor, turning the once innocent sitcom character's name into a cruel insult representing incompetence and failure. Kubrick deliberately chose that specific name because it had become actual Marine Corps slang for recruits who couldn't handle basic training, with drill instructors using Gomer Pyle as shorthand for any Marine who seemed too stupid or soft to survive in the military. The character in Full Metal Jacket spirals into mental breakdown under the constant abuse and eventually murders his drill instructor before killing himself, forever associating the name Gomer Pyle with violence and tragedy rather than gentle comedy. Jim Neighbors was reportedly disturbed by Kubrick's use of the name, but understood that 20 years had passed since his show ended and that the cultural meaning of Gomer Pyle had shifted. The film's dark portrayal reflected how the Vietnam War had changed America's relationship with military service, turning what was once seen as noble and heroic into something brutal and destructive. Real Marines who served after 1987 grew up with two completely different versions of Gomer Pyle, the sweet television character from their parents' generation, and the doomed recruit from Kubrick's masterpiece. The name became permanently darkened, with its association to mental breakdown and military suicide overshadowing the harmless sitcom that originally popularized it across America during the 1960s. Fact 8. Camp Henderson was named after a war hero.
Where did she go? Where did she go? What do you mean you lost her?
Where were you when the officer showed up?
Well, I was somewhere near Sergeant Carter's hut.
Oh, no.
The fictional Marine base where Gomer Pyle served wasn't given a random name, but appears to honor one of World War II's earliest heroes. Camp Henderson in the show was likely named after Major Lofton Henderson, a Marine aviator who became one of the first American pilots killed during the Battle of Midway in June of 1942. Henderson led a squadron of dive bombers in an attack against Japanese aircraft carriers, but was shot down before he could complete his bombing run, sacrificing his life in what became one of the most crucial naval battles in history. The Marines honored Henderson's sacrifice by naming Henderson Field on Guadalcanal after him, a strategically vital airstrip that played a crucial role in the Pacific Campaign throughout 1942 and 1943. When the producers of Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C. needed a name for their fictional base, they likely chose Henderson as a tribute to this Marine Corps tradition of naming installations after fallen heroes. The show never explicitly explained the origin of Camp Henderson's name or mentioned Major Henderson's story, leaving most viewers unaware of the connection to actual military history. This naming choice added an unexpected layer of authenticity to a comedy series that otherwise avoided serious military topics, quietly acknowledging the real sacrifices of Marines, even while presenting a sanitized, humorous version of military life. Henderson Field remains an important location in Marine Corps history, and veterans who served in the Pacific recognized the name immediately when they watched Gomer Pyle, understanding the show's subtle nod to their fallen comrade, even if most civilian viewers missed the reference entirely. Fact 9. The show never advanced. Gomer's rank.
It hasn't been signed, sir.
It hasn't?
No, sir. Private Pyle refuses the money, and I can't get him to take it.
Gomer Pyle remained frozen at the rank of Private First Class for all 5 seasons and 150 episodes of the show, despite plenty of opportunities for promotion. In real military life, a Marine who avoided serious discipline problems would typically advance in rank after serving for the length of time Gomer spent at Camp Henderson. But the show's writers deliberately kept him at the bottom of the enlisted hierarchy. This decision made sense from a comedy standpoint because Gomer's low rank meant he continued taking orders from Sergeant Carter and remained in positions where his incompetence could create humorous situations without serious consequences. Promoting Gomer would have fundamentally changed the show's dynamic by giving him authority over other Marines and reducing his interactions with Carter, so the writers simply pretended that years weren't passing and kept everything frozen in time. Ironically, the real Marine Corps decided to honor Jim Nabors with promotions his character never received, making him an honorary Lance Corporal in 2001, then promoting him to Corporal in 2007, and finally advancing him to Sergeant in 2017. These honorary ranks recognize Nabors' decades of support for the Marine Corps, including countless performances at Marine events and his status as an unofficial ambassador for the service. By the time Nabors reached honorary sergeant rank, he had climbed higher in the Marine Corps hierarchy than his fictional character ever did, creating the strange situation where Jim Nabors outranked Gomer Pyle. The Marine Corps traditionally gives honorary ranks to civilians who demonstrate exceptional support for the service, and Nabors received this recognition despite never serving a day in uniform beyond his television role. Fact 10. Vietnam War was completely ignored.
And he pays it no matter what. His kid might go without roller skates, but you get paid.
Well, that's just terrible.
Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C. aired from September 1964 through May 1969, precisely the period when American involvement in Vietnam exploded from advisory missions into a full-scale war that would eventually deploy over 2.5 million service members. Despite being set in the Marine Corps and airing during this massive conflict, the show never mentioned Vietnam even once in any of its 150 episodes. This wasn't an accidental oversight, but a deliberate choice by CBS and the show's producers to keep the series focused on lighthearted comedy without acknowledging the controversial war that dominated American news broadcasts every night. The Marines who appeared on Gomer Pyle existed in a strange alternate universe where they trained endlessly but never deployed to combat, spending their days dealing with Gomer's mishaps rather than preparing for the jungle warfare that real Marines faced overseas. This creative decision made sense from a business standpoint because audiences watching television in the mid to late 1960s wanted escapist entertainment that let them forget about the war for 30 minutes rather than being reminded of the conflict that was tearing the country apart. Other military sitcoms like McHale's Navy and F Troop avoided contemporary combat by setting their shows during World War II or the Old West, but Gomer Pyle took place in the present day and simply pretended the war didn't exist. The show's complete silence on Vietnam became increasingly noticeable as the war intensified and casualties mounted, creating an uncomfortable disconnect between the innocent comedy viewers watched and the brutal reality that actual Marines experienced during those exact same years. Fact 11. Marines gave total cooperation.
I couldn't decide whether to pan fry them in their own oil or to fillet them and broil them on a stick over a low fire.
Let's have them.
The United States Marine Corps provided unlimited support to Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C. because military leadership believed the show would improve their public image and boost recruitment numbers. This cooperation included access to Camp Pendleton and other Marine installations for filming, permission to use real military equipment and vehicles in episodes, and technical advisors who ensured that uniforms, procedures, and military details appeared authentic on screen. The Marines even allowed actual service members to appear as extras in episodes, filling out formation scenes and background shots with real uniformed personnel rather than hiring actors. This level of military cooperation essentially turned Gomer Pyle into a recruitment advertisement disguised as entertainment, presenting the Marine Corps as a place where good-natured young men could serve their country in a friendly environment under stern but caring leadership. The show carefully portrayed Marines as honorable, disciplined, and fundamentally decent people who occasionally dealt with a lovable screw-up but never faced serious moral challenges or questioned their service. Marine recruiting offices reportedly saw increases in enlistment during the show's run, with young men citing Gomer Pyle as part of their decision to join the Corps, proving that the military's investment in supporting the production paid off in measurable ways. The Department of Defense has a long history of cooperating with Hollywood productions that portray the military positively while denying support to films or shows that might damage recruitment efforts. And Gomer Pyle represented one of the most successful examples of this symbiotic relationship between entertainment and military interests during the Cold War era. Fact 12. Neighbors wrote Indy, 500 lyrics on his hand.
As a result of the enemy grenade, this man and this man are dead. Tag them.
Jim Neighbors became synonymous with the Indianapolis 500 despite having no connection to Indiana and learning the race's traditional song in the most desperate way possible. In 1972, race organizers unexpectedly asked Neighbors to sing Back Home Again in Indiana before the start of the race, but he didn't know the lyrics to the song and had no time to properly rehearse. Neighbors solved this crisis by scribbling the words on his palm and pen so he could glance down during the performance and remember what came next, essentially cheating his way through a song that would become his signature for the next 4 decades. The performance went well enough that organizers invited him back the following year, and Neighbors eventually sang Back Home Again in Indiana at the Indianapolis 500 for 42 consecutive years between 1972 and 2014, missing only the 2015 race due to health problems before his death in 2017. The irony of Neighbors becoming Indiana's musical ambassador wasn't lost on people who knew he was actually from Alabama and had no personal connection to the Hoosier state beyond this annual singing gig. Neighbors eventually memorized the lyrics properly after his panicked first performance, But he never forgot that his legendary association with America's biggest auto race began with him frantically reading words off his hand while trying to look natural in front of hundreds of thousands of spectators. The tradition became so important that when Neighbors finally retired from singing in 2015 due to declining health, Indianapolis 500 organizers struggled to find a replacement who could match his iconic status. Fact 13. The show created a bizarre spin-off attempt.
He's devoted to this horse. He's going to feel real bad.
Not much I can tell the sergeant, but put him out in the fields and let him enjoy his last days.
CBS executives developed a plan to create a spin-off series called Sergeant Carter U.S.M.C. that would have featured Frank Sutton reprising his role without Jim Neighbors anywhere in sight. The network believed that Sergeant Carter's loud, aggressive personality could carry a show on its own, perhaps focusing on his interactions with new recruits or his personal life away from Gomer. This spin-off idea emerged after Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C. ended in 1969, when CBS was looking for ways to capitalize on the show's success and keep Frank Sutton under contract. Network executives approached Sutton with the concept and offered him the opportunity to star in his own series, but Sutton rejected the proposal outright. The actor told CBS that he was exhausted by the Sergeant Carter character after playing him for 5 years and 200 episodes, and that he had no interest in being typecast as an angry drill instructor for the rest of his career. Sutton wanted to pursue dramatic roles and distance himself from the comedy character that had made him famous, believing that continuing to play Carter would permanently limit his acting opportunities. CBS never developed the spin-off after Sutton's refusal, and the actor went on to perform in theater productions and guest roles on various television shows throughout the 1970s. Tragically, Frank Sutton died of a heart attack in 1974 at just 50 years old while rehearsing for a dinner theater production in Louisiana, cutting short his attempt to escape the Sergeant Carter shadow and prove his dramatic range to Hollywood. Fact 14. Real-life romance. Stayed hidden for decades.
We're in the same outfit and all.
Gosh, I don't know where I can get used to calling you Vince.
We'll try. Okay?
Okay. Vince.
Jim Neighbors lived with his partner Stan Cadwallader for 38 years before they could legally marry in 2013, keeping their relationship carefully hidden from the public throughout most of Neighbors' career. The two men met in 1975 when Cadwallader was working as a Honolulu firefighter, and they remained together until Neighbors' death in 2017. But Neighbors didn't publicly acknowledge his sexuality until very late in life. Hollywood in the 1960s and 70s was brutally hostile to gay performers, and Neighbors understood that revealing his orientation would likely destroy his career and cancel his wholesome image as America's favorite country boy. Some crew members on The Andy Griffith Show reportedly mocked Neighbors with homophobic slurs during filming, creating a hostile work environment that Neighbors had to endure silently to protect his rising career. The harassment continued throughout his time on Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C., but Neighbors maintained his public persona as an asexual innocent who simply loved singing and making people laugh. When Neighbors and Cadwallader finally married in Washington State in 2013 after same-sex marriage became legal, Neighbors was 83 years old and had spent nearly 4 decades hiding his most important relationship from fans and colleagues. The revelation came as a shock to many viewers who still thought of Neighbors as Gomer, the childlike Marine who seemed too innocent to have any romantic life at all. But most fans responded with support and celebration that Neighbors could finally live openly after years of secrecy. Fact 15. Pink Floyd sampled Gomer's catchphrase.
No, Pyle, don't you do anything.
But I can read my compass real good now.
I'm fine. Just do as I tell you and life will be beautiful.
Yes, sir. This is really gonna be fun out here, just you and me.
Pink Floyd's 1979 concept album The Wall contains a hidden Easter egg that most listeners miss even after dozens of plays. The song, Nobody Home, features Gomer Pyle's famous catchphrase, "Surprise, surprise, surprise," playing faintly in the background during specific moments of the track, mixed so quietly into the soundscape that it registers as almost subliminal audio. The band sampled the line from Gomer Pyle U.S.M.C. episodes and incorporated it into the album's complex sound design, which included television snippets, war sounds, and various cultural references woven throughout the music. The use of Gomer's voice fit the Wall's themes of isolation, mental breakdown, and the destructive nature of authority figures, though the connection between a Marine Corps comedy and Pink Floyd's dark rock opera seems bizarre on the surface. The album's protagonist, Pink, gradually loses his grip on reality throughout the narrative, and the Gomer Pyle sample appears during moments when television and media references blur together in his fragmenting consciousness. Most Floyd fans never notice the sample unless someone points it out specifically, since it sits buried beneath layers of guitars, synthesizers, and Roger Waters' vocals in the mix. Nobody Home wasn't released as a single and exists as one of the Wall's quieter, more introspective tracks, making the Gomer reference even more obscure than it might have been on a more popular song. The sample represents Pink Floyd's tendency to incorporate found sounds and cultural artifacts into their music, treating television shows and commercials as raw material just like traditional instruments.